Okay, so in the episode, our review of the Misano Grand Prix, Matt referred to a question that he would want to ask Adam. And since he's here, our motorcycle expert, and of course we have Matt, our nerdy nerd, and it's not even a tire question, Matt, I think.
Well, no, and this is a fun one for me as someone who was a bicycle mechanic and who raced bicycles. And I snapped a chain one time going up a hill at full tilt. And I'll tell you, it's a pretty odd experience when you're on a bicycle. But we saw KTM have 3, I believe, chain failures. And the factors that got mentioned were the unusual amount of grip and the length of the swing arm. And so I'm going to say to you, Adam, first, how does a longer or shorter swing arm affect the motorcycle? And then second, we're going to speculate wildly about why that might then have caused the issues with the chain.
So I have a basic understanding of riding, seat time, stuff like that. Never on a GP bike, never on prototypes like this, but I just have a general understanding from setting up my bikes, setting up the sag and the ride height and things like that. And so take it however you want. But from my side of things, the big part of it is the swing arm is typically going to affect on how it turns. And I say turn is like how easy does it lean, what your radius is on a gradual corner. Is going to be different depending on the length of your swing arm. It kind of goes into play with the rake, which is the angle of the way that your front forks are kind of in or out. I'm trying to think of I could picture it in my head. I've never really explained this, and so bear with me. But the swing arm, if it's longer, it's typically, or I guess the target is typically a shorter wheelbase because it gives you more agility, but you lose stability. And so the longer the bike is, the more stability you have, and it's better for the high speed corners or for corner exit. And so it's like you want, and the other part of that is you gain a little bit of, you're not really adjusting the length of the swing arm, but when the bike squats, like with the ride height adjustment, you're essentially extending the bike just a little bit because the swing arm is kind of flattening and putting more tension on the chain in this way. And it's kind of squatting the bike a little bit. And so it gives you a little bit more, a little bit less flex, makes it more rigid. And so you get better traction. It's kind of similar. I grew up in a family of drag racing. And so my brother always, he used to run a Hayabusa that did, 8 seconds in a quarter mile. Yeah, that's a whole nother lifetime ago, but yeah. So I have a little bit of experience with traction and things like that just through experience, but you basically have a longer swing arm to give you more grip. And so what I think led to the failures was the high grip. They wanted to take advantage, or they wanted to try to set up the bike for it to be more stable on the fast corners. So you went with a little bit of a longer swing arm setup, and you can adjust the wheel distance, but using essentially the axle's not fixed in the swing arm. You can use washers, and there's some little adjustment bolts, and those adjustment bolts help slide the wheel forward or back like an inch. But you got to think that this is MotoGP. They do everything in millimeters, so it's such tiny margins. And then because they went for maybe, I'm going to say, the longest wheelbase that the bike was capable of, they ended up putting a lot of tension on the chain. And so I don't know how many links they can do, or if they can add links. I don't know what the rules are on that. But the chain was probably tensioned as much as it could be. And combine that with the active ride height, squatting constantly, I think it just tensioned the chain too much, and it just failed because, say, it can only do 30 squats with the ride height before you start getting some kind of change in the linkage. I think it's something like that. Yeah, Matt, sorry.
Well, see, now you've wandered into my bike mechanic neighborhood, because bicycles have a way to deal with this. They're called derailleurs, and they essentially take up the slack. So you can go from the small chain ring to the to the biggest cog in the back and vice versa. But we would have issues along those lines with the chain angle, because it can get pretty steep. And if it got too steep, you would actually lose a lot of bike performance just due to the friction that's being induced by that angle. And when you started talking about how when it squats and when you use the ride height device versus when it's not, I'm thinking you've got two issues here. One, you've got to have a long enough chain so that at full extension, at absolutely full extension, you can still, the chain will still work. In other words, the chain isn't restricting the extension or the squat of the ride height device. But then that sets up a secondary problem, which is when you're not activating it, you've got slack in your system.
Yeah, exactly.
And so what I wonder is perhaps if they were going for the maximum, they had a longer than normal chain. And did that just mean that if you activated that ride height device at exactly the wrong moment, you cause yourself the kind of problem that you've never seen before, which is exactly what I think we saw with the KTM. Either, like you said, it's stress, which is when you take chains off and put them back on, you have to put the pins in. I mean, in a bicycle world, I don't know how they do it in MotoGP, but there's just a standard tool for it. But if you do that enough, if you add links enough, I mean, it could be a finger fault as well, or it could just be that,
I think that it's kind of a combination of all of that, where it's like if they added an extra link, it might have been too much slack when it wasn't under, full load or full tension. And then there was something else I was going to say.
Maybe the aggressive curbs played a role in that as
I don't know if it's the curbs. I think it might have just been the grip, just adding like an excess like torsion on the frame through the swing arm in a way where it just caused some type of like,
because you have some lateral flex there too.
Exactly. Yeah. All
and
this stuff
maybe
is
there was
flex.
more, if you're going at a higher speed and you induce more lateral flex than you planned for, and you're at your maximum extension of the chain already, then you're beginning to put stress on it in ways that it may not have been fully designed for.
Yeah. And the other part you got to think of is that these are race bikes. They're not, they're designed to race, but you don't set them up for their peak potential. It's like the phrasing is weird, but think about it in a way where you set it up where it's the least bad, because it's going to be uncomfortable everywhere. But you set it up where it's the most comfortable in the worst sections. So you got to think of it from that way, where it's like you're just making compromises here so that you're better, over there. And so you got to look at it from that perspective, where it's like, yeah, we can run this chain setup this way. It's going to be risky, but the bike is going to handle better. And you're going to have more consistent pace to fight for the podium. But the bike might fall apart right as soon as you cross the line. And so that's where, okay, let's do it. It's one of those things where it just race setup.
Any rider will say, oh, I'll be faster. Okay, yeah, fine. It might fall apart. Yeah, sure, whatever. Let's go. Yeah. All they hear is like bright, shiny object.
More grip
faster?
out of the corners.
Yes, please. Yeah.
More edge grip in fourth gear. Hell yeah, let's do it. And so, yeah, exactly. It's going to come down to stuff like that. But then when it fails, you get the number one salute.
Indeed.